Hi, in this lecture we're going to be talking about the multi-sub material parameter. So we've actually met the multi-sub material when we were working with our bed that came from our Cosmos browser. Now we've actually created a multi-sub material here in our interior design. So if I go to the material editor and I'm going to create a new tab, so right click and create new. I'm just going to name it multi-mat. Let's just pick our materials from our mesh. So I'm going to go for my pick material from object option and click it once. Now, as you can see, we have the multi-sub parameter working here. Now up here, we have our wooden texture that, if you remember correctly, we created it from scratch, but now it's linked to this multi-sub parameter. Down here, we will also have the brick material, which is in our walls. And this is because we selected all of the faces that compose the walls and then detached it as an element. So consequently, it's also linked to our multi-sub parameter here. Now, all of these extra materials that are the Corona physical material, but we haven't created any. And this is because the beams that we didn't add any texture to it are also linked to our multi-sub parameter. So if I just press the P key and then go down here to my zoom tool and just zoom out, you can see here that I have this beam that's in a whitish color, but I've never added any material to it. And this is actually not a very good thing, because these beams, or all of these beams over here actually, are reflecting white color. That could give me some reflections inside of my interior design, which we wouldn't want to have. Over here, we can also see that this window frame doesn't have any texture to it either. So it's better if we add materials to all of the objects that are in our interior design to avoid any reflections that we don't want. Okay, so for now, let's just go back to our camera with the C key. Okay, so I'm actually going to assign the material for those remaining wooden beams using my multi-sub parameter. And the only thing that I need to do is just to grab the material for my beams up here. And I'm just going to drag this out a little bit so that I can see how this will act. And now I'm going to drag this material and link it to the first one here. I'm going to instance it, okay, and there we go. Now I've added the material to the remaining beams just like that. Okay, now I'm just going to zoom in again, like so. Just center this a little bit more. So the multi-sub parameter, it's a very helpful tool that it's going to save us a lot of time. You also have to be familiar with it because most of the 3D models that we import into our design will have this multi-sub. But now you know how it works. Alright, so let's move on to the next topic. Something that we haven't talked about yet is the map channels. So if I go back to my material editor, each of our maps will have a map channel in here. Now this is only going to be true for the bitmaps. For example, if I go to this parameter here, I will not have that kind of option. So keep that in mind. Now each of these map channels is working with my UVW mapping modifier in here. So if I just select this, down here we will see that the map channel is set as 1. And this is also the case from this bitmap here, which is in the map channel 1. But what if I wanted to actually have a separate UVW map for each of my textures? So let's say that I wanted to change the scale from the walls and not from my beams. I wouldn't be able to do that because they're inside the same mesh. They're just separate elements. And this UVW mapping is controlling both of those textures. But what if I just wanted to change, again, the scale from only my walls and not the beams? I would go down here to my bricks, and let's go inside our map, and you can see that this map channel is set as 1, 2. Now I'm just going to create another UVW map that's going to be in control of only my walls and not my beams. So let's go ahead and type in UVW map. And here I'm going to change the map channel to 2. And also I'm going to change the map channel from this bitmap here to 2. However, we mustn't forget that we need to change the map channel number to all of the bitmaps that are working with this Corona physical material. So in this case, it's our ambient occlusion. So I'm going to change it to 2. It's also our normal texture. So 2, and finally our displacement. So everything is set to 2. Because if I don't do this, my material is going to have one UVW map wrapping, and my displacement is going to have another one. So that's going to create a mess for my material. And also our roughness, don't forget about that. Alright, now we can control the UVW map for our beams separate from our UVW map for our walls here. So let's start an interactive render and see how this works. Alright, so we can clearly see that my beams are properly mapped while my brick wall is looking like a mess. And that's because our new UVW mapping is controlling my walls, and the mapping is set still to planar. So let's go and change it to box. And let's give it a value of 150 by 150 and by 150. Okay, and now you see how this is working out. So this is a very handy tool, as sometimes we want to change the wrapping from a material that's inside one mesh and not separate meshes. Okay everyone, as always, thank you for listening. This is it for this lecture. I'll talk to you soon.